Welcome to the Wrestling Universe channel. My name is Cosk, and today we have a really good show to review. I am joined by one of my favorite writers in the Impact fan base, Hakeem. Say hello to the people.
Hello, everyone. It's nice to see and hear from all of you again.
So, before we start, I will have to apologize. We had scheduling issues, so we couldn't do the last Impact review. If you want to check out some of our stuff from Impact, we still got you covered. We have an Impact versus Ring of Honor video, and we have a podcast from the previous 2 weeks of the episode where PCO got burned live. So we still got you covered on Impact content, and we will have you covered going forward.
Absolutely. So, of course, we had Slammiversary 2023 that took place a few hours ago, and I think I can speak for a lot of people that was one heck of a show. And of course, we will dive in depth on what had taken place, what we liked and disliked, and probably even speculate on what we will probably expect going forward as we're now going on the road to Bound for Glory.
But before we kick off with the main show, I kind of want to delve a bit into the pre-show. Like, not too much, at least not for this first match, but let's just go right into it. No killer, no filler, right? We kick off the show, or we kick off the pre-show with the Shawtourage of Giselle Shaw, Jay Vidal, and Samantha Evans versus the Dead Dolls and Jody Trett. What did you think of this match?
Well, first off, I will say it sounded like Giselle Shaw got some new theme music, which is nice. I actually liked the one that she had before, but you want to know what? Maybe this new one will grow on me and the rest of the Impact fandom. But I thought this match was good for what it was. It was a solid few minutes of action, and yeah, it gave Jody Threat and the Deaf Dolls a well-deserved win, especially for Threat, who just came back after a very hard-fought but unfortunate loss to Deonna Purazzo on the go-home show on Impact.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's not really much to say about this. We're kind of mentioning it to mention it. It was basically a match to get people on the show. So, like, I don't really have much input on the like match itself. A nice win for Jody Tress. The Dead Dolls are like pretty over baby faces in the division. Like, they're not like people who you'd expect to like be main eventing at this stage in their careers. They could, but like that's not the position Impact's putting them in right now. There's other people kind of in that fold, but they're the people Impact kind of rely on to kind of get the crowd hot going into a show, and this is what this was. This was Impact using Giselle Shaw and her stable as like these heels to just put over the fiery baby faces. That's pretty much all I can say about this match.
Yeah, I agree with you right there. And while I don't think we have too much to say about the six-person match that we right there, what we definitely can talk about is the match with the Digital Media Championship because holy shoot, this was something I did not expect and certainly set the foundation for what the show was going to be like going forward.
So, for the past few weeks, or has it been longer than weeks? How long have Joe Hendry and Kenny King been feuding?
I feel like it's been weeks, but I will say if you've watched Joe Hendry for a while on Impact, you've kind of know how his shtick has been, where it's like he's in a feud with somebody, makes a song dissing them, probably eventually fights for the DMC belt. He beats them, moves on, rinse and repeat. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people, myself included, probably thought, all right, it's another example of we're going to get that same stuff, feud, make song dissing your opponent, match happens, Hendry retains, and all that type of stuff. But, of course, if you've watched the show, you know that, well, that they decided that yeah, that same routine was getting a bit dull and they changed it up. And what we mean by that, well, let's just get into that.
So, I mean, let's not beat around the horse. Kenny King is the new digital media champion. It was
Mm-hmm.
it was a fairly competitive match. Like the only like it wasn't like crazy by any means, but uh Kenny King put the bow tie on Joe Hendry. It was kind of a back and forth match.
Yeah, the Chippendale type of thing he had on, which I thought was a nice touch. And I feel like, and especially I think part of the crowd was chanting what stripper Hendry, which immediately I'm like, oh boy, don't get started with that there. But yeah, the action definitely was very competitive. And I will say the finish certainly surprised me, but maybe I was so conditioned with how Hendry was champion that, how we've seen how this has happened, that this would be no different. But as we just mentioned, nope, they subverted our expectations on that, and Kenny, or should I say the KING, is now the DMC, which is just a nice ring to it there. And also, I would say subverting our expectations is a theme you will see running throughout the entire pay-per-view as a whole, or just unpredictability, I think is another way to describe it. But overall, it was a good way to start off the show. And, and also I will say this, if one thing I've noticed, if Tom Hannafin is constantly mentioning that, oh, you are the longest reigning digital media champion and you're defending the belt, it's a slight chance you might be losing the belt too, because then with Brian Myers and now it's with Joe Hendry. So now I'm like, as soon as you hear him say that commentary, you're defending the belt, you might as well be like, okay, I think he's losing the belt tonight. But, just a little observation on my end.
I will say, like, my real observation coming out of this is they kept Joe Hendry really strong in the finish, and I feel that was for a purpose. Like, I'm saying this as a big Kenny King fan. I think what he's done, I wasn't really a big fan of him before this recent Impact run, but I feel like what he's done has been great. I feel like he has a swagger to him that not a lot of people have, which is very important to have in the wrestling business, in my opinion. I think I think he's gonna have a really good digital media title run, Kenny King, but this this match really felt like it was just freeing up Joe Hendry of the Digital Media Championship, in my opinion, because I think Impact see a star in him, and rightfully so. I feel like they're going to go all the way with him. I feel like in the next, I'm not going to say the next 3 months, because we have Josh Alexander, we have Eddie Edwards, like there's a lot of people in the world title scene. Nick Aldis is probably still eyeing that title, but like, in the next year, here's a prediction. In the next year, Joe Hendry will have a pay-per-view match for the world title.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like, if I'm Impact, I'm like, have Joe Hendry for the rest of the time right now. Still be in the mid-card, upper mid-card, to help foster up the mid-card scene, because he doesn't need to still be the digital media champion to help, build to make sure there's a mid-card. I feel like he could at least have, obviously Kenny King, Joe Hendry, like you have Yuya, maybe even Bhupinder Gujjar if you can bring him back in as well, and maybe a few others that could make a solid, maybe not remarkable, but a solid enough mid-card where they have a reason for fighting for this championship. And also as a little idea, if now that Kenny is is now the DMC, I would have him be like things like, I don't know, vignettes or like exclusive videos that he would post on his Twitter or on YouTube, because there's one thing I'd like is that whoever holds the DMC belt, they should at least have different reasons or ways of using social media while being the champion. Like, obviously, in most cases, like Brian Myers, he was promoting his merch and talking about how great he is. In Joe Hendry's case, he's using musicals and all that type of stuff. In like Kenny King's case, he could probably just come out dressed like 5 to the 9s, bragging, maybe sort of a pseudo music video type of stuff like that. Not similar to Hendry's in any case, but sort of like a bragging about my achievements, or why you should care about me if this is your first time watching, why I am the KING, who is now the DMC, if you will.
Yeah, so like, I think we've said everything we have to say about that match, but like overall, solid stuff. It gives the pre-show some importance, and it gets a thumbs up from me.
All right. Now it's time for the show itself, the big show.
Something else that gets a thumbs up from me No,
Okay.
you know what? 2 thumbs up.
Absolutely. Big thumbs up there.
The Ultimate X match, which opened the show. It's like Impact tradition to open a show with the Ultimate X when it's on the card.
Yeah, I feel like they've done that for the last two or three Slammiversaries, which I guess makes sense here because, like, hey, if that formula is a winning formula, hey, why change it up if it's worked so well?
It's the ECW idea, start off with the high flyers, like to get the crowd pumped up. Like that's really the way to go, in my opinion. And let's just go through the competitors of this match because we have Alan Angels, right? We have Mike Bailey, we have Jonathan Gresham, we have Kevin Knight, we have Kushida, and we have what's his name, Jake something, is back in Impact.
Yeah, I was not expecting that, but again, I don't think much of us were. It's like when it just showed on the Titantron, it said something. I'm like, what? And it just shows Jake something coming. I'm like, what the hell? Where'd he come from? Then they said, and the final participant, Jake something. And I'm like, okay, I guess Jake something's in this match. It's like, it would have been nice if y'all had said, oh, there's a mystery person in here as opposed to like, don't think about it too much. Jake something's in the match. Go with it. Which, okay, sure. Now, whether he's like, this was like a one night thing or he's just going to be here for the tapings or if he's signed, but it hasn't been made official, I don't know. But you know what? It's great to see him back. And if he does stick around, hopefully they get to use him a lot more. And who knows, maybe he could be a DMC champion, in the near future. But again, that's for that speculation and for another time. But the match itself, I mean, like, what did you think of this match?
Before we get into the match, you mentioned Jake something's contract status, and I do have an update on this. PW Insider reported, I believe you have seen this.
I think so.
That Jake something, alongside other names, which we will talk about later, have signed some sort of a deal. It's not known how long, but this isn't a one-off, to say the least. We don't know if he's going to be here for a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, but he is here at the very least beyond the show. This is not a Slammiversary surprise. This is something we are going to see for No One Coming Back tapes at least the next month of television, probably more. So that's exciting stuff. When it comes to the match, you don't know where to start. I mean, this was just like insanity. We had probably the craziest moonsault I've ever seen in my life, by Mike Bailey.
Oh yeah.
We had.
Oh man, that was insane right there. I think even Tom Hannafin, as that move was happening, he's literally said, like, if you listen to it just for a brief second, he says, like, you are out of your mind, which, yeah, I think a lot of fans who weren't chanting holy shit would probably be like, yeah, Mike Bailey, you out of your goddamn mind right there, and you're lucky you didn't break anything from hitting that move.
Yeah, I mean, like, it was a really fun match. I feel like everybody did their part. Like, Jake something kind of dominated the match as we started off, but like everyone essentially teamed up on him and like took him out. It became like a tag match for a bit between Bailey and Gresham and Kushida and Knight.
Oh yeah.
There was this crazy reverse Hurricane Rana, or I believe it's called a Poison Rana, where Alan Angel spiked Kevin Knight. Was it Kevin Knight?
I believe so, yes.
He spiked him from the top rope, and I was like, oh my god, Kevin Knight broke his neck. He was okay, thank god. I would say the star of this match was Alan Angels. I feel like he had a real showcase match. Like, we missed this because we couldn't do the review, but Alan Angels is now completely repackaged. He's doing the character that he's doing on the indies, and I think it's going to work out really well. I'm a big Alan Angels fan. He has this like egotistical charisma. He was kind of showcased as like this lackey for his entire main company career. He was the other guy in the Dark Order. He was he was Diener's lackey in the design. Eric Young's lackey in Violent by Design. So now this is his time to really showcase himself. probably the best opportunity he's had to showcase himself since the Kenny Omega match, and feel like he's got this. I mean, I think he's gonna do a great job.
Yeah.
But like another talking point of this match, and I'm gonna let you take the lead from here, is the winner of this match. Speaking of unpredictability.
Yeah. I will say when it comes to the Allen Angels stuff, the two things I noticed, I think he did a maneuver where I think it was like Spanish fly like maneuver on two guys from the top rope where how it looked like it how the camera showed it, it almost looked like he might have weirdly landed awkwardly on his head or neck, but then afterwards you just see him favoring his lower back, and I was just like kind of wincing in pain for him, just watching like, oh God, like mate, you better hope to God that you don't get no more moves on your back, otherwise you're done for tonight. But another thing about him that made him stand out for me in this match, which I loved, was I love that this man is hitting people in the downstairs area. Like he's hitting Jonathan Gresham in the octopus. He's Jake something climbing up the ropes, all while Allen Angels is just flying just high enough to hit Jake in his cousin Jake, if you will. And I'm just like, what the hell is it with this man and hitting people in the downstairs area? Again, it was fun. And barely even the man himself agreed, because he showed a little quick footage of him hitting Jake something in the breadbasket from that match on his Twitter.
How do
But
you fake
man,
that?
honestly, I feel like you can't fake that type of stuff. But you'd think, and I think even the commentary says, like, you think the people in this match would invest in a cup. But then again, I probably imagine they weren't thinking I was going to need a cup going into this match, because I was expecting to get kicked in the downstairs area. But what we also certainly didn't expect was who was going to win, which Kushida surprised me. He actually won the Ultimate X match, and he's going to get a shot at the X Division Championship. And from what I've heard from his work in NXT and even in New Japan, he's very good, and especially Impact did a good job building him up. You know, when he went up against Steve Macklin for the World Championship at Rebellion, I mean, heck, there were even some people who in some of the private chats I was in, who even thought to himself, oh, wow, dear God, Impact, you're actually making me start to think you're going to put the belt on Kushida. Now, obviously, that wasn't the case, but he definitely proved himself to be in a sort of main event caliber right there. And after the success from that and now going into winning Ultimate X, I'm now wondering, is like, will this be a thing where Kushida will immediately get the opportunity at the next Impact Plus special? Or is this a thing where they might just drag it out just a bit, maybe to, like, I don't know, Impact 1000, or perhaps maybe even Bound for Glory? I wouldn't say to BFG, but hey, you know what? Impact does long-term storytelling better than others. But yeah, Kushida won. Surprised me. I didn't expect it. But what about you? What were your thoughts of Kushida winning?
For one, I keep providing with the scoops. Kushida versus Leo Rush was announced for this set of tapings actually before the show the show actually finished. It was just a match announced. So in fact, like, inadvertently spoiled both results, but we had no idea. Classic.
Oh God, yeah. I was, you know, I swear that actually, to be honest, I kind of find that funny now, because when you see that and think, oh, it's not a Fallout match, it's gonna be on the tape, you think, oh, okay, it's gonna be a good match, it's whatever. Then you see the pay-per-view and you're like, oh shit, Impact, did you just unintentionally announce a potential X Division title match at the tapings? And it's like, okay, that was like, it's like crafty and funny at the same time, because like you think it's just your standard match is gonna be great. Now it's like, oh, we went from standard match to boom, it's perhaps and now an XA title match. You know, like, well, I hope you got your tickets, because you're probably gonna see match of the year quality, especially considering the two men involved. And yeah, and obviously we're kind of just spoiled the results to the X Division Championship match. And oh boy, I have some stuff to say about that match. I'm sure you do as well. But from the X Division match, that the Ultimate X match, we now move on to the next match that took place here on this card.
Yeah, we have Master Slamovic and Killer Kelly versus the Coven for the Impact Knockouts tag titles. Overall, what did you think of this match?
Well, first off, I like the not only the new theme song, but also I love that they've already given them a name known as MK Ultra,
Ooh.
which let's just say there if you ever Google search that term, let's just say you'll find some interesting stuff. So I don't know how Impact might be able to get that monetized on their videos exactly, if that might get in the way, but you know what? I have faith in them to be able to know how to make that work. But Masha and Killer Kelly, like, to be honest, all four of the ladies in this match, I am a fan of them for a variety of different reasons. So for me, I already liked the match going into it, and the action certainly it did not disappoint. MK Ultra, aka Masha and Kelly, they showed off what they could do as a team, and again, it was very competitive. Taylor and Kylan, they did good for as well. And also, I did like the part where Taylor was making her entrance and her like crown thing kind of fell off of her head, and she's like, "Oh shit!" and just trying to recover. And it's like, "Nope, nope, it's already gone," and just like smile and pretend it didn't happen, but it like little thing there. But overall, I enjoyed this match, and I think this perhaps was the one prediction I think me and everyone else knew was going to happen. You know, Masha and Killer Kelly are now the new Knockouts Tag Team Champions. So that's two new champions we have seen in this on this show right here. But what did you think about the team of MK Ultra, the match, and what you think we might see for the Knockouts division going forward?
So when Master Slamovich came into the company, she was built up with this undefeated streak, right? But the problem with an undefeated streak is when it ends, your character is kind of in limbo because you've beaten everyone. And Master Slamovich, once she lost the undefeated streak, was in limbo. She would lose match after match. Like all of her big matches, she would lose, and they would be great matches, but she'd lose. And I feel like there was a real question of what's next with Masha. And ever since she started this feud slash partnership with Killer Kelly, I think that's really, really helped her to the point where I think she's now really finding her identity in Impact for the first time in her career there. Like, undefeated streaks are cool, but they're kind of cliche. Like, she's booked strong, but you're not, like, attached to the character. I am attached to whatever they're doing with Masha and Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
The Coven, on the other hand, I feel like Taylor Wilde, she's a veteran presence. I tweeted this a few days ago, but I was really like thinking the OGs run this place. You got Alex Shelley, you got Chris Sabin, you got Frankie Kazarian, you got Eric Young, and in the women's division you have Taylor Wilde. She's the veteran president. And I feel like this team with Kylan King has been very beneficial for both of them because Kylan is this fresh new face who kind of makes Taylor Wilde feel it was fresh, whereas working with a legend like Taylor Wilde is very beneficial to her, you know, to Kylan King. Overall, the match, like, nothing to write home about. Like, it was a pretty competitive match. It was decent. Like it was probably, in my opinion, I'm gonna say the weakest match because we have something to get into later. Let's just say, but
Yeah.
it was one of the weaker matches on the card, and that's not an insult to this match, not at all. I think it was a decent match.
Well, absolutely not.
But
absolutely not.
When the bar is like over here, some stuff is just gonna be over here. You know, it's like it's a decent match. It was a good match, but like I can't really talk about like the match itself because like nothing really stood out to me. It was like just good, solid action. Kind of, they were flowing well. Good tag action. The match kind of not ended abruptly, but like it feels like they didn't hit that second gear yet. But I feel like they didn't have to hit that second gear because not every match has to be a 5-star match. This was a solid, maybe, I don't know, 2.5. It was this kind of average
Yeah.
match, which really sets up stuff for the future. And I feel like
Mhm.
I feel like these two teams are going to continue feuding because the women's tag division just doesn't have enough teams to have like a good flow. So like this is not going to be the end of these two teams feuding. And I feel like in their future matches, we're really going to see what they can do more than we saw here. Again, not an insult, it's just like sometimes you kind of hold back because you know this isn't the end. You know you'll have like a bigger time to shine, maybe a main event of an Impact TV show between them. And I feel like
Mhm.
that's when we're going to see what these two teams can really do.
Honestly, I agree with everything you're saying there. One thing I would hope is, Impact considers bringing back Knockouts Knockdown either for this year or next year, because I would think if there was a way, like when they used to do them, they would have all these names from elsewhere who would go on to be big stars with the ability of hindsight, like, Marty Bells, Allison Kay, Deonna Purazzo, and whatnot. And I'm thinking Impact should use this as a way to like create a tournament, a knockouts tag team tournament. Like
Ooh.
get some of your talent as well as some tag teams from the indies, basically. You fight this tournament and it goes like this. Whoever wins gets a shot at the knockouts tag titles. But if say you're a team from the indies, well, this one's special because not only do you get a shot, but you get that shot in addition to a 2 or 3 year contract provided to you by Gail Kim herself, basically. I'm like, there you go. Not only do you have a display of great talent right there, you get to see the progression of these teams and even their character build, if any, throughout the show. And you get to sign some new talent along the way, basically, as well. And also, again, it's only going to help impact, not only where their division, but help make the case for why they are back then and now the standard bearer for what women's wrestling can be and is in North America.
Absolutely, and I don't know how I'm going to segue from talking about the standard of women's wrestling to a Scott Demore match, but let's just
Yep,
get.
sorry about that, Nick, but yeah, so our next match here is the match that, let's just say, has had more twists and turns than anything. It is Bully Ray and Deonna with Big Con at rings, accompanying them versus Scott Demore and, of course, the returning Eric Young, who, like many people, were wondering how the heck did he come back after being, well, shanked or stabbed, if you will, by Deonna. And probably Impact will probably just bring out James Mitchell on next week's episode of Impact and kind of clear that up, because whenever you need something undead or whatnot to be cleared up, just call in James Mitchell or something, because he's always the perfect scapegoat. But putting that to the side, I'll say that it's great to see Eric Young back. And for anyone who was wondering, like, wait, wasn't he under like a WWE contract or as a producer or something? Why is he here? Was it like some trade? Like, no. Apparently, according to some source, I think it's Fightful or PW Insider,
It's
who's also
Fightful.
mentioned. Okay, yeah, all right, thank you. It's Fightful who mentioned that apparently Eric had actually asked for his release, I believe it was 6 months ago, because he heard that, Vince McMahon was back in charge, and perhaps also realizing how that went the first time, he decided, yeah, I don't want to be a part of this company if Vinnie Mac is back. So they granted his release, and apparently he had like a 90-day no compete clause, which actually managed to reach its conclusion the week prior, which then freed EY to basically come and compete here. And also, I will say it is nice to see Eric Young not only back in Impact, but also, back in Team Canada as well.
Can I just say, for one, massive respect to Eric Young. You know, like a lot of people, they're like, "Oh, if Vince McMahon comes back, I'm gonna quit," and then Vince McMahon comes back, nothing happens. Eric Young,
Mm-hmm.
don't get me wrong. I'm not like dissing anyone who doesn't quit because that's their livelihood, that's their job, that's how they provide for their family. So like, if anyone doesn't want to quit, if anyone wants to, keep collecting that bag, Triple H promises he's going to be in control. Like, I'm not going to get too deep into it because this is an Impact podcast. But like, all I have to say is, well, I don't have any disrespect towards people who don't do this. The fact that Eric Young like felt this like moral compass not to work with Vince McMahon after everything that Vince McMahon has kind of like done, like the stuff he's been accused of, the allegations, like that gives me a massive respect for Eric Young. I feel like he's a man of honor.
Honestly, I respect him especially for that as well because again, as you said, most people said, "Oh, what? Vince coming back? Oh shit! Oh no, he's coming back. That's it. I'm leaving. I'm gonna ask for my release. I'm gonna go to." And I heard TNA is hiring. I heard AEW's hot shit. I might go there. Vince shows up. Oh, hey, Mr. McMahon, how are you doing, sir? Oh, yes, oh, yes. Oh, how are you doing? Oh, that mustache yours looks quite amazing, by the way. And they stay in their lane. Eric Young on the other way is like, this back? Fuck this company. All right. Hey, Scott, here's Slammiversary's coming up. You need a tag partner? Oh, what? PCO burned to a crisp? Oh, don't worry. I'll get a flight there, and I'll be there in no time. And I'll say, for me, it's not a bad match, but I kind of feel like it's one of the weaker matches like the Knockouts tag titles because for me, there's nothing in this match that is wrong. It just feels like the booking could best be described as almost all over the place at best all over the place, at worst almost scatterbrained because
it was a very TNA match. If I'm gonna like Jeff Jarrett's type book stuff.
Yeah, the part especially is that really just made me think, what the hell is Bully hitting Scott D'Amore in the Maple Leaf, if you will, and he's like waiting for this ref to like DQ him, and Eric's telling him, no, don't do it, and they're just like arguing, and this ref is just for minutes of awkward exchange of just, yeah, they kill me, huh? What are you waiting for, huh? They kill me, and the referee's like, forget this, taking his shirt off. And I'm thinking, okay, random unknown referee, are you about to start fist fighting Bully Ray? He's like, no, he just rips his shirt off, walks off like, I don't need this shit. At which Darren McCarty, who by the way is also the special guest enforcer, I forgot to mention, he is the special guest enforcer for this match. He sees this and like, oh, I guess the referee's not here. All right, hey, look at me. I'm the referee now, which we're like, okay. I guess we're just gonna let this happen. I guess also, why wouldn't you just made that a no DQ match? Because let's be honest, the tension going on here most certainly would have warranted a no DQ match. And also, you could have had McCarty just be the special guest referee as opposed to having to go through this to make it happen. Again, it's a minor nitpick, and I'm probably one of maybe a small number of people who would have any issue with that, but it's stuff like this where it does feel like TNA-esque, and I say that both in the good way, but also you can see some of the more almost Vince Russo-like booking style peppered in there, basically. The only thing missing was something on a flagpole that you had to go and collect or something, but I digress. But overall, I will say, as we get to like the finish, it was where let me see where it is. It was like Scott D'Amore basically his mother was actually in the crowd, which is a nice little feeling right there. And Big Con got himself involved, where A1, who for those who don't know was the enforcer and member of Team Canada back in the day, managed to clothesline Khan out of the match after he got himself involved and tried to break up the pin. And eventually EY and Scott and even Darren McCarty managed to get their licks in on Bully and even do the Wassa bomb onto Bully, which then leads to what can best be described as vintage Bully Ray, clutching his now bruised balls, red face, mouth open, like, all while screaming, just wait for it, all my balls, all my balls. And then, of course, as a nice little throwback to what happened at Sacrifice, both McCarty as well as the more chokeslam Bully through the table. And then, of course, we see what I would probably say was a phenomenal looking, no pun intended, to AJ, a phenomenal elbow drop by Eric Young over the prone body of Bully Ray onto Deonna right there. Because honestly, when I saw it again, I'm like, dear God, that is an elbow drop Macho Man Randy Savage would probably be like, oh, yeah, and just be so happy with. And obviously, the right team won with Demore and EY. And again, as much of my complaints that I did have with this match, it was the best way to describe it is kind of like junk food, where it's like you don't like having it all the time, but when you do have it, it's good in small doses. And honestly, this by itself, it was good in small doses. But that's my view on it. But what are your thoughts about the action and who won this match?
This match really just felt like the comeuppance of Bully Ray, which really is the story of the pay-per-view matches of Bully Ray. Like, say what you will about Bully Ray, he's quite a controversial figure in the IWC and the wrestling fan base in general, but like, he's a really good heel in the sense that like he does like the most vile stuff a heel can do, like a person can do. But when it's time for payback, he gets payback. You know, he got put to a table. He had like a referee. He has this like weird rivalry with referees in this company, where like
yeah,
constantly is feuding with referees. Like they had the thing where like 5 referees were beating him up as I think Hard to Kill. And now this pay-per-view, yeah.
No, sorry. I think it was at Rebellion where it was the hardcore war where he asked all the refs to hold up the ladders and they just said no and they just started beating up on him, which again is just a bunch of silly nonsense. We're like, okay, well, I guess we're doing this. And even went back in his TNA days, he would like constantly just get into Earl Hebner's face and constantly just point at him, say, "You are a stupid run. You can't do your job right." And then you just see like Earl Hebner turn all red face and just start barking at him and just backing Bully in the corner, just threatening to punch him. And I was just like, oh my God, look at this septuagenarian right now, intimidate this 300+ pound man right now in the corner. It's like only in wrestling can you see something like this and just laugh at it. But yeah, Bully's relationship with refs, in a way, constant because now the ref was gone and now we had a hockey player who went to a big fan of being choke slammed through a table prior, and now that he was the referee, that being McCarty, you knew that, Bully, mate, you done fucked up, and yeah, you got fucked up, and so did your balls.
Yeah.
Or as Taz would say, I saw. God damn it, you should have wore a cup.
But like overall, pretty. Let's be honest here. A match between like 4 guys. Like there's Eric Young, who's a great worker. But Deonna, he's decent, but like not known for his great in-ring work. Bully Ray's more of a storyteller, and Scott D'Amore, he's not really a wrestler. Like he was, but like that was a long time ago. He can still wrestle, and he did like some impressive stuff in this match. But
yeah, I think even you got the faint, I knew this chat was gonna come. The faint, you still got it, Chan. Which I'm like, yeah, for a man his size, he managed to do a lot of stuff where most people would have looked blown up in like the first 3 minutes going into it. No, he actually looked pretty good, all things considered. It almost makes me wonder, it's like, would the outcome have been the same way had it been Steve Macklin who was still in the match, or would this match probably have been lower on the card into almost not exactly main event, but near like main event, maybe 3rd, 4th match to the very bottom? But I guess, that we will never know until like stuff comes out, I guess.
That's an interesting point, but like this match was really cursed because like you had PCO, which was a storyline, of course. He didn't like actually. Well, they did actually set them on fire, but like it was planned and all of that. But he had the Steve Macklin injury, which made it like really complicated when you had to have PCO also got to the match. So like 50% of like the announced competitors were gone. But at the same time, I think it was a blessing in disguise. I think that Steve Macklin, speedy recoveries by the way, couldn't really afford a loss like this. Like a real sympathetic babyface loss. Like after being the world champion and then you're losing to Scott D'Amore, like in a match that like was quite one sided. Maybe they would have booked it differently, but like was quite one sided. I don't think that would have been beneficial to Steve Macklin. I think maybe taking some time off to like recuperate and like come back feeling like with like this momentum on your side because you're back after months, like that could benefit him. And of course, a big story of this match that we haven't mentioned is how this affects Diener, because Diener's story for the past 2 years has been looking up to Eric Young. Eric Young was his mentor. Eric Young created the design. He gave up his life to the design. And then to see his mentor come back opposing him after this big moment, like yes, Diener staffed him, but like people forget that Eric Young wanted that to happen. That was like a prove yourself moment to Diener. So like Diener must feel kind of betrayed. And I feel like this is going to lead to some really, really interesting storytelling between Diener and between Eric Young. I think this is going to be the best story of Diener's career. And I think that this is going to be the end of the design. We've seen Alan Angels leave. Now it's a two-person stable. And now with Eric Young, who some people forget was the one who introduced Khan to the company, or at least introduced him signed to the company, because his first appearance was jobbing to Josh Alexander in like 10 seconds. But like,
Yeah, which by the way, not the best way to make this guy look intimidated, where it's like, oh yeah, he gets beaten like 10 seconds and now, oh, he's back. Now we're supposed to treat him as a third. Like, okay, we're not WWE fans. We remember stuff. Are we just going to forget that this guy just got drop toe hold into an ankle lock and just tapped out in a few seconds, and now you want us to think, oh, look at the size and the intimidation, the strength of this man. It's like, oh, they just called Josh Alexander. Don't worry, he'll take care of him in a few seconds. And I wouldn't be surprised knowing Jake Something's history with Diener if, say, Jake Something teams up with Eric Young to, at the very least, as a team against Diener and Khan. I was going to say Allen Angels maybe for a brief bit and you have a 6-person tag, but then who would be for the design? Because at this point, as we said, I think before, the design needs to get some new members or freshen their stuff up. And while this story definitely is like a bit of a breath of fresh air, I still wonder, though, it's like, will we see new members, or is this going to be like, the death nail of the design, not, as a whole going forward?
I think it should be. I mean, like, for one, I'm just gonna like go back a second. With Alan Angels, I don't think he should interact with the design anymore. I think he's much better off focusing on himself. And I feel like this is a good way to like storyline wise to get that, because like there was this problem where it was like, okay, Diener, this cult leader, he's not going to be okay with the guy leaving his stable, leaving his family. So that kind of meant a mandatory feud with Alan Angels. But like with this Eric Young interjection, I feel like you can have Alan Angels just kind of move away, do his own thing, because Diener's going to be distracted with this existential crisis going on in his life. And I think this should be the end of the design. I think something that we've seen in wrestling is sometimes stuff is like kind of overdone, like you don't really know when to end it. The design, it's kind of felt like it's on its last knees for the past few months, really. Like the storyline with Sami Callihan wasn't very good.
I felt like it devalued Sabin. It actually lowered Sabin's stock more than anything. It's like, again, again, all of them did exactly what they needed to, and they did it as good as they could. But honestly, it just felt more like, wait, Sandy Callahan is a former world champion. He's a main eventer. He's literally one of the pillars of this company. Why the heck are we having him literally take 21 steps back to now for this middling mid card at best feud, which unless it's gonna make some big stars out of the design, it's not gonna do anybody any benefits or any favors, which outside of Alan Angels breaking off to do his own thing, which to be honest, I feel like him going on to be a big star was gonna happen, whether as a member of the design or on his own. So overall, if this does mean the end of the design, I am looking forward to it just as much as I'm sure we would be looking forward to the next match that took place on this card.
We were looking forward to it. Chris Sabin versus Lio Rush for the X Division Championship. I did a post on Twitter. I was like, who do you think is going to be the star of, going to be like the biggest match of the show, like the best match of the show? And a lot of people said Chris Sabin versus Lio Rush, and like, of course, Chris Sabin versus Lio Rush is going to be the best. They're great guys.
Yep.
Great wrestlers, but like, that's not exactly what happened, was it, Hakeem?
Oh no. Okay, may I just say, when I watched this in real time, this match, mentally and in terms of my predictions, this match broke me right here. It's like I became like Matt Hardy. I was broken when this happened because I was like, okay, first off, let me just say this. I had predicted that Sabin was probably going to retain after a hard-fought match, and I thought, Lio Rush's, penchant for like leaving companies when he's not supposed to, or announcing his retirement. So obviously Impact's not gonna put the belt on somebody who is gonna probably announce a few weeks later, oh, I retired. Oh, okay, now we're just gonna vacate the belt and have a tournament, yada yada yada. So that's why I thought Say was gonna win. But I did say, even if somehow they said, okay, I guess Rush is the champion, I know we were gonna have a banger of a match. We got a banger, but it wasn't a match because let's just get into it. You have Lio Rush come down to the ring, looking as fly as ever. You have Chris Sabin making his way to the ring, and Lio, apparently not one for patience, decides, I'm gonna get the jump on Chris Sabin and starts attacking him with a maneuver that knocks Sabin onto the floor, which sees Sabin favoring his head, which then leads to a suicide dive, which again favors and targets Sabin's head. And you begin to see a doctor, not Ross Foreman, by the way, the actual looking doctor, checking on Sabin as well as the ref for this match. And you have Lio just doing what I would call the Austin Aries pose of just sitting on the top turnbuckle with his legs up, just like, is that it? Come on, y'all! I got right. It's Slammiversary. We have a match. Go on, give them money's worth. And the doctor's telling Sabin like, no, I think he's concussed. He can't do it. And the ref is telling him, it's like, you know what, Sabin, I won't let this happen. You do let me know that you can compete. We'll let this match happen. Sabin saying not a word. He shoves the doctor out the way. He gets there, gets to his feet, gets in the ring, and for the ref, he's like, all right, that's all I need to know. Ring the bell. And Lio Rush drops Sabin like a bad habit, goes to the top, frog splash. 1, 2, kicked out. Oh, he kicked out. Oh, thank goodness. For a second, I was about to say, I thought we were going to be denied a great match right there. Oh, we're now going to see Sabin fight back and have a back and forth contest, right? Nope. Frog splash again. 1, 2, new champion. Okay, I'm sorry. What? Wait, that's it. Wait, that's it. Yeah. Lio Rush is the new Impact Wrestling X Division champion. Treated Chris Sabin, like a jobber, squashed him into the next century, and the bad child is now the king of the X division right this very moment. And honestly, the best way I could describe this match is, and if you're a WWE fan, you will know what I'm talking about. Is that, you know, those moments when the person who has the money in the bank contract will come in to cash it in on the champion, hit the maneuver on them, pin them, kick out, then immediately keeps beating them on some more before eventually getting the 3 count and they win the championship. That to me felt like the closest thing to that in this match. It wasn't a match itself, it was more of a giant moment, which just, again, it made my jaw drop because I didn't expect the match to turn out like this. But I sure as shit did not expect what many of us thought was going to be a barn burner of a match basically end in just like a quick wiping the floor with Sabin, and now Rush is the champion. Now, obviously, this leaves the door to uh, a rematch that most certainly will happen, and what the future will hold in terms of Leo Rush's status with the company now as the champion is definitely there. But hey, he said in like interviews and whatnot that this is the place he wants to be, and as I said before, Rush looks like the guy who has that, comes off and walks and talks like a guy with some legitimacy. And honestly, Impact, you're doing good, but you need somebody like Rush who not only talks and looks like, yeah, if I needed someone to look like a wrestler, talk like a wrestler, and bring some maybe mainstream appeal just from the look of him, Leo Rush is that guy. Now, I know obviously I'm kind of talked about it, most of my thoughts, obviously, but what about you? What is your thoughts on the match and the crowning of a new champion?
I know. I mean, I was disappointed. Like I was very disappointed at first. Like I watched the show in advance,
Yeah.
so I heard that this match was. No, I watched the show like after it happened because the show happened at like 2 a.m. for me. So like
Mm-hmm.
I heard that this wasn't really. This was like a weird match. I didn't know who won, but I just heard it was a weird match. And like when I watched it, I was like, oh, this is what they mean. And I was like really, really disappointed at first. But then when I was thinking, I was like, you know, this could make for a really good story in the sense that Chris Sabin tweeted I'm sorry, just an I'm sorry, which broke my
Yeah.
heart.
Yeah.
And
I would just oof. It's like he knew in that moment. It's like he knew. I just was like, I know y'all are not mad at me. Y'all are just disappointed in me right now. And it's like, oh, yeah, mate. We expected a 5-star match from y'all, and what we got was a squash match to end squash matches. And I'll say, as a match, not much to it. As a moment in of itself, from beginning to end, I would say is up there as a potential Slammiversary moment overall. Like that by itself, that was pretty impressive to just go in there, get one over this one of the pillars of the X division, and then just beat him like that, and just say, "Yeah, I walked into your company, I beat you in a tag match, I got the jump on you again, and I'm your champion now. You want this belt? Come get it, but you're gonna lose."
yeah, and like for one, I'm gonna say Impact has really been pushing Leo Rush, as you said. Like he came into the company, won the X Division Championship, he beats the World Champion in a tag match, and this is making me think, what's next for Leo Rush? And I feel like obviously we have the match with Kushida, and like Kushida is known for being friends with Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley. They have the I think Time Machine Guns is their trio's name.
I think
So
so.
there's like this storyline between them now of Kushida like trying to get vengeance for his friend Chris Sabin, but more importantly, there's a really good story between Alex Shelley and Leo Rush. So if Leo Rush were to cash in option C eventually, and Alex Shelley is still champion, I feel like Alex Shelley would be very vulnerable to the man who essentially concussed his best friend, took away his title, embarrassed him in front of like 1.5 thousand people, 1.5K in the arena, and thousands, hundreds of thousands maybe watching at home. Like that's like
Mm-hmm.
that's a really good story to do, and you have like this redemption arc of Chris Sabin being embarrassed, having probably the worst kayfabe moment of his career,
Oh
and
yeah.
now he has to fight back. He has to come. He has to really push forward. And if they don't do the option C story, I feel like the story is Chris Sabin redeeming himself, pulling through. Maybe a story of maybe for the first few weeks, like can Chris Sabin compete for the foreseeable future? Maybe this is a serious concussion storyline wise.
Mm-hmm.
But then he pulls through. He's cleared. He starts getting wins back, starts building up to a match with Leo Rush, and they have the proper match between them at Bound for Glory, where in like an actual match, an actual barn burner match, Chris
Yeah.
Sabin gives them 20 minutes to justify this, because I know a lot of this is a moment that will really make some people happy and really make some people upset. So like you have to justify it to those fans who are upset, who are fuming that they didn't get their match, by giving
Mm-hmm.
these two a lot of time in the eventual rematch.
You know what? I feel like, as we said, this whole thing is a story. You want to know how we can add even more to it? Say, Chris, you couldn't beat me in a few minutes when I was in the ring with you, never mind a few seconds. What makes you think you could beat me if we went longer? And then Santino Morella or whoever announces and says, okay, you think you can go the distance. You think you can go the distance. Well, how about this? At Bound for Glory, it's going to be Leo Rush versus Chris Sabin for the X Division Championship in a 30-minute Iron Man match where there must be a winner.
That would
And
be
it's
great.
like, and it's like, there you go. It's like, Sabin, you have literally all the time right now to kick Leo Rush's ass. And Leo, you have all the time to basically prove your case as to why, Chris Sabin is both at Slammiversary and potentially in this match is your bitch and you can walk out still the champion. But either way, if that match was to happen, oh my God, just matching those two just for 30 minutes, just tearing the house down, that'd be amazing. But speaking of championship matches that were amazing, of course, we now go to the four-way tag match involving Subculture, Callahan and Swan, Moose and Myers, and the defending champions of Ace and Bay, ABC. And actually, something I had noticed while I was on Twitter before we did this show is that apparently Chris Bay kind of mentioned on Twitter that the outfit that he was wearing is an homage to an outfit that the late great Latino Heat Eddie Guerrero once wore, which, to be honest, I just love wrestlers, paying homage to other legends, even if they aren't exactly in from the TNA or Impact, era. But you know what? It was just amazing. And again, you wouldn't have noticed unless, Sabin and Bay had mentioned it, to be honest with you. But as I said, now we get into this match here. And if the title change with Leo Rush broke my mind and my predictions, the outcome of this match, that also broke me in another way as well. But I'll get more into that in a bit. But what is your thoughts about this four-way tag match?
It was very chaotic, but like not chaotic and like there are ways of chaotic that people like and people don't like, and there was this got the more chaotic, which personally I was okay with, but I could very easily see how that is bad chaos.
Mm.
Like too much, it feels like kind of scrambly booking. This to me was chaos in a good way, where it was just
Oh yeah.
guys going crazy. Like one guy enters the ring, the other guy enters the ring. Like so, one guy enters the ring, takes out a guy. Another guy enters the ring, takes out that guy, and it was just like, for the most part, teams other than ABC, you haven't really seen a lot of Impact, kind of
Mm-hmm.
showcasing what they can do. I feel like everyone really stood out. I feel like everyone did a great job. I'm happy to see Brian Myers in a spot like this. I feel like his team with Moose is really going to elevate him because, like, let's be honest, this is no disrespect to Brian Myers. There is a limit on how successful he can be due to his reputation in WWE. A lot more people watch WWE than they do Impact, and he's always going to have this stigma about him. So you can't really push him as this like main event guy, for example, because if you're trying to attract fans and they see Kurt Hawkins main eventing your pay per view, it's like that's not going to bode well for like attracting people. But like I think this is the best position for him. Like a tag team position is really what can elevate him because you have a homegrown guy like Moose, like a genuine top guy like Moose, who can kind of give the team the star power. Whereas Myers is a great talker. He's got charisma. He's a pretty good wrestler. He can hold up his own, and I feel like together they can do really great things. So I hope that they continue this tag team going forward because I'm all for it. Personally, when it comes to the match, as I said, chaotic. I feel like everyone did their job well. I think Callahan and Swan worked very well together. I think Subculture. Honestly, when I was watching this match, Subculture probably did the least. Like when the match first started, like the first half of the match, but like as the match kind of progressed and we got closer to the finish, they started like hitting more and more impressive stuff, and they started getting more and more into the match, and I started getting more and more invested into them. They are a great tag team, so I'm happy to see them stick around. We'll talk about that later. If the finish shows us anything, we're gonna be seeing more Subculture, and I'm very excited for that. When it comes to ABC, I thought the clear winners of this match was ABC, and if anyone else was going to win, it was going to be Callahan and Swan. And during this match, there was a time where it really felt like Impact was setting up to finish, you know? They did the cutter where Ace Austin tosses Chris Bay into the air and he hits a cutter. I believe it was on Mark Andrews, and Ace Austin was going to go for the fold. Brian Myers could tag in, but they were still going to hit the fold and then deal with that later. But this is when Zachary Wentz, the returning Zachary Wentz, we've seen him for a few weeks. He's back in the company. This is his first pay-per-view back. Still have fresh face. And Trey Miguel, the Rascals, would attack Ace Austin. Bay would jump over the top rope, take out, I believe, Trey Miguel, but Zachary Wentz would then take out Chris Bay, so both of them would be out. The Rascals would leave after taking out the champions, setting up a program between the two, like a very heated program, I say that, because they just cost them the tag titles. And yeah, they cost them the tag titles because now we have new champions, not Myers and Moose, not Callahan and Swan, not the signed guys to this company, but the new guys, the guys who I would say, at least I thought this was a one-off. I did not expect to see Subculture after this, but after a very, very fun finish where I believe it was Flash Morgan Webster who hit a shooting star. Was that Flash Morgan?
Yeah, I think it was Flash Morgan who hit a move outside to take down everybody else. I think they called that I'm not sure if it was the Pinball Wizard or something like that. And then it was Andrews who hit the shooting star press slam. And honestly, and to get the 3 count for their team. And I certainly didn't expect that outcome at all. Like, I'll say, when I saw Subculture in the beginning going into their match with ABC at Under Siege, I was like, Impact, you need to sign them. I didn't see much of their work, but I just knew that you need tag teams. Yeah. Mark Andrews is a former member of the company, so he has that connection. So, and hey, they got a woman with them who can wrestle, as we saw with a match with Jody Threat. So, oh boy, you got a guy who was from the TNA era, a tag team, and a woman who can be both the manager and can wrestle. So, Impact, you need to sign this team here. And when I saw them actually Under Siege, holy shit. Probably the top one up there in the top 10 best matches for Impact in 2023. And I did think it was a one-off, and I was actually just one of many constantly just retweeting on Twitter. Impact, you need to sign them. You need to get these guys because if you don't get them, AEW will, and you know AEW is the haven for tag team wrestling. So you know that if someone tells Tony Khan this, he's gonna be like, "Oh, a new tag team. Oh, good. The Young Bucks could use the competition, basically." But I didn't because they weren't signed to a contract, and also I thought this was also again another case of a one-off. I thought, okay, they're not gonna win. Moose and Myers aren't really much of a tag team, as well as Callahan and Swan. So I'm thinking, okay, so they're not really much of a team either. So okay, ABC is gonna walk in and retain their titles before eventually feuding with the Rascals and then eventually lose the belts to the Rascals there, basically. In fact, at one point, many speculated, oh, the Rascals will get added to this match because Wentz beat Babe only for Santino on the go-home show. Be like, yeah, I saw your match, but you didn't earn anything. Who said you'd get added into this match? And they said, okay, all right, we remember that, and you're going to regret it. And oh boy, they regretted it because now ABC are no longer the tag champs. Subculture are the champions, meaning at least before the announcement about them signing some type of contracts, I thought, oh, great. Now we have two champions, like the tag champions in Subculture and Leo Rush, the X Division champion, champions who are not under contract with Impact. And now I'm like, okay, how is this going to work? But then again, Deonna never signed a contract with Impact when she was Knockouts champion, and she eventually signed a contract. So maybe it could be something like this. But then when I heard, oh, they signed some kind of contract, it's not exactly sure what, like how long the contract is, type of stuff. Which I'm like, okay, it's you know what, I would like to know, but also I'm like, maybe it's better I don't know because at least at that rate, I'm not one of those people who are having to harp on, oh God, how long are they here for? How long are they going to be here for? It's like, no, we don't always need to know this type of stuff. We don't always need to hear about this and then be excited and blow up because like, Impact, how could you not sign them for longer than this? Like, no, just know that they're signed. You don't need to know how long. Just they're signed. Enjoy the ride for what it is. And if we find out later on that it becomes long term, we're going to enjoy the ride more. And if it's not and it's just for a bit, enjoy it for what it is. And then we can look back and be like, well, with reflection, was it good short term or was it good in the long term? And then just move on from there. Speaking of moving on, we can now go and talk about the next match, unless you have some more thoughts.
I have not a lot of thoughts, but just like a quick note. After the Motor City Machine Guns kind of moved up to the main event scene and the X Division scene, respectively, I was kind of thinking, okay, now the Tag Division is kind of struggling, but just a quick note, like, I really feel like with the addition of Subculture, with the addition of the Rascals, with the ABC becoming more established, it's like they went from like a makeshift team to a genuine established tag team. So you have ABC, you have Subculture, you have the Rascals, and then at the same time you have Kushida and Kevin Knight, who could be sticking around for a bit. We don't know their situation. They kind of come and go with this company. And
yeah.
Then you have Gresham and Bailey, who I think would be a great tag team, who are kind of go from opponents to tag partners very, very regularly, so I don't know the status with them as a team, but
Yeah, they kind of just flip flop, basically. It's kind of just like Impact just decides, all right, we'll just have y'all be opponents and tag partners whenever the situation, calls for it, basically. And we're just like, and they're like, all right, guys, make it work, basically.
Yeah, so like a quick note is the tag division is kind of getting back on its feet after what looks like a tough time, so that gets a thumbs up from me. And something else that does get a thumbs up from me is the next match. Speaking of tag team wrestling, we have two tag team veterans, Eddie Edwards of the Wolves and Frankie Kazarian of Bad Influence. two tag team veterans, two singles veterans, two of the best to ever do it in Impact, in my opinion, who have had a very competitive kind of not respectful feud, but like a feud built on both respect and disrespect at the same time. If that makes sense. What do you think of this match?
I'll be, again, as I mentioned before, like this feud at first would have first look like for me something I wouldn't have been interested in, but honestly, I feel like just the work that these two have done with each other, as well as how serious this things are getting, that they have to like. Not only did the rivalry go all the way to Slammiversary, they brought the wives involved as well. It's like Eddie, of course, bringing his ride or die, as Matthew Ray Walt would call Alicia Edwards, but Frankie, he was like, okay, you're going to bring your wife into this. Okay, I'm going to bring my wife into it, but not just any wife, a knockout. The original knockout, Tracy Brooks, basically. And of course, it was nice to see Tracy, of course. And this match, it was good. I felt like when we talked about the last match involving Eddie and Kazarian, they said that the match was good, but it felt like they were holding back. I think, as you said, they were holding back.
Yeah.
And I think it makes sense. Why? Because, if they were going to have it at Slammiversary, don't give everything. Just give the audience a little taste, a little nibble to kind of hook them on. And then when the big show happens, you then, go balls to the wall. You give it to them as much as you can in the allotted time we give you. And I think they definitely did that. And I felt like, Kazarian did a good job, especially fighting back, especially with all the disrespect Eddie was throwing throughout going into this match and throughout the rivalry. Eddie did a good job as well. I love the parts where Alicia tried to attack Kazarian, and he's like, no selling any of this. And of course, Tracy getting involved in, especially the part where Alicia trips up Kazarian, and it's like, oh, okay, Alicia's getting involved, only for then Eddie to get tripped by Tracy and be like, oh, okay, yeah, two can play at this game. And Tracy's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't do anything. And of course, as we know, the wives eventually would get involved because, of course, they are. You're just gonna have them just come in there and just interfere, and not interact with each other. And of course, they did. And the finish, which I kind of a bit surprised again, as I said in the beginning, Impact subverting my expectations here. I thought maybe just me. I'm not sure about you. I'll ask you in a second. I thought Kazarian was gonna win this. Like, you're bringing your wife into this, you kind of makes it feel like she'd be the great equalizer, which she kind of was. But then, of course, we find out that even with your equalizer, apparently Eddie had a bigger equalizer in the form of Kenny the Kendo Stick, and Eddie picked up the W. And of course, now my question is, where do both Eddie and Kazarian go? Is this the end of the feud? Are they going to continue it? And if not, again, where are they going to go, or where does the feud go from here? But, that we can talk about in just a second. But what about your thoughts? Who did you think was going to win this match? Or more specifically, what did you think of the match and the wives being involved?
It was a very good match. I think these two are like proper ring generals for this company. Um, but they did a very good job. Like, it was a real good back and forth. Eddie Edwards and Alicia would kind of cheat, and Tracy Brooks and Kazarian would then give them receipts. So it's like back and forth, very good action. Two of my favorites in the company, to be honest with you. Like, I was very, very happy when Kazarian returned. I'm a sucker for TNA nostalgia, so like, I was all for it when Kazarian returned, and like, I think this Eddie program has been pretty solid. Like, nothing to write home about, but like, pretty solid stuff. Like, a very consistent feud. But I kind of assumed this was going to be the end of it. Like, natural storytelling. Like, we kind of are prone to kind of know what happens next because we've seen it so many times. And like the natural storytelling flow is after Kazarian introduced his wife, after he finally figured out a way to beat Edwards at his own game, he was going to win a Slammiversary, he was going to move on, and that would be it. But Eddie would cheat with the kendo stick, and I don't think this feud is over, and I don't think that's a good idea. I think Kazarian should have won. No, I could be wrong here. I could be completely wrong. They could do something great with this feud in the future, or they could end it here and do something great with both guys. But the natural storytelling to me kind of dictated that this feud should have come to an end, and it didn't. And now I'm just thinking, what's next? What more can you do than bring back Tracy Brooks for this feud? There's something we're going to get into in a little bit, which I think they kind of could implement into this feud. A certain Japanese superstar who could be a cool addition to this feud. We'll get into that later. Mm-hmm. But overall, I think this was a bad choice. But I could be wrong. I feel like Kazarian should have won. I feel like you should have set up Kazarian versus Shelley after this, with Kazarian being like, hey, you're taking my story. Was my story to finish. I was meant to become the Impact World Champion. That's why I came back to this company. That's why I signed a full-time contract. And now you're taking my moment to like this kind of like respect between them, but like a feud of, hey, I'm in the same boat you were. I won the championship. I fought my ass off for this championship against Josh Alexander, and I'm not going to let someone else take my moment. So I felt that was where they were going with this, but it seems like either the feud is continuing, or maybe they're going to do an Eddie Edwards versus Alex Shelley program for one of the Impact Plus shows.
Which, honestly, that would be a good match, but honestly, again, nothing against it, but like Alex Shelley versus Eddie Edwards, is that like a match if you were to have a pay-per-view and that was your main event? I don't, again, respect the heck out of both men for what they've done both in and outside of Impact, but not exactly a match that I would imagine people would buy a whole bunch of tickets to see, because again, as good workers as they are, if you're looking at like a main event on Star Power, both of them are good workers, but you need more than just good workers to sell the main event. You're going to need to have some very good hype, a good story, and I'm not sure what they would have in terms of a story to make, you convinced to do, watch this match. I mean, that's the same thing I thought with Josh versus Eddie Edwards at Bound for Glory, I think, what was it, last year, where I thought, it's going to be a good match, but if in terms of storylines or storytelling going into this match, it was the weakest, perhaps, of any of the main events for BFG in recent memory. Great match, but I was full of more of a kind of, well, was there ever any doubt? And I hate the fact I have to say that, but I feel like if that was to ever happen with Eddie versus Shelley, it would be another case like that, because I think we're at a point where I don't think Eddie is going to be a world champion again. I think the last time when they did do it was because of, Tessa Blanchard left and all that mess. Michael Elgin was gone because of all of that mess as well. And they just said, quick, we need to torpedo someone as our champion. And they just said, well, Eddie's a reliable hand. And they just made him a kind of transitional champion. A good one, by the way, but kind of a transitional champion. And unless Impact ends up in a situation like that, which I hope it doesn't, and Eddie just so happens to be in the right place at the right time in the right storyline, I don't think he's going to be in another situation like that, which is fine. I don't think he needs that. I mean, I think he's relatively fine where he is, and especially as the locker room leader, as well as Kazarian. But what's going to happen with these two if they continue feuding? I'm not entirely sure, but you know what? I trust Impact is going to be the company to at least make us kind of care, because there have been a lot of times when there have been stuff where like, well, what are you going to do going forward? And Impact does surprise us. And speaking of surprises, of course, well, actually, I shouldn't say surprise because this match we all expected was going to be tremendous. And we have ourselves a little visitor there in terms of the dog right there.
She was laying down, but she felt like coming up and visiting the podcast.
Oh, well, I'm guessing she must be a fan of the next match here because we're going to be talking about the ladies right now with Trinity taking on the virtuosa Deonna Purazzo for the Knockouts World Championship. And I gotta say, I liked Deanna's entrance going into this match, like the all blue. It almost looked like she took Ric Flair's robe and say, "Yeah, let me add my own style to it," and it just looks good on her. And also, she had her own like violinist, accompany her to the ring. I don't know who that lady is that was the violinist. I think I heard somebody on Twitter say that might be her sister. I have Deanna's sister. I have no idea if that is true or not, but if so, congrats on you, Deonna, for getting your sister an opportunity to show off her skills, if that's the case. And of course with Trinity, there was reports where I think Mercedes Monet was I think either backstage or in the crowd perhaps for Slammiversary, which if that's the case, I just love that, even, they're not working together, that they're still supporting each other, going to each other's shows and all this type of stuff. And again, just really shows the solidarity between both Trinity and Mercedes isn't just, well, WWE threw us together as a tag team, so let's feign some type of like unity. No, this is legit. This is genuine type of stuff. And I'm gonna say this match was it? It's not the greatest match. I felt it bit deflated because I like how Impact hyped it, like
Yeah.
it was going to be a like almost on the same level as say maybe Deonna's matches with Mickey James or Jordan Grace. And this match was good. Okay, like I think Trinity has proven over the years she can have some good, very good matches, and Deonna could literally wrestle a broomstick and somehow manage to make that year match of the year or match of the night. So obviously, I expected a good match, but yeah, it's a bit disappointing because it just I don't know the right way to describe it. It's like
It,
it's a good match, but it feels like it needed something or maybe a few more minutes, maybe a part in the match where it really felt like, oh my God, both ladies have literally used everything in their arsenal. They can't put each other away. And the crowd is absolutely having an out of body experience. Like, oh my God, like she kicked out of that. Or nobody's ever kicked out of that. Like, how is that possible? It's like, again, maybe I'm just projecting on my end, but honestly, again, good match. Felt like I wanted to see more, and maybe if they have the rematch, which I think will be the case, we will get to see a lot more. But overall, good match, and I think we all knew the outcome, which was Trinity picking up the W and winning the Knockouts Championship, and actually being the first of four women, as I found out, to be someone to have held both the Knockouts Championship and the Women's Championship in WWE. The other names, for those who are wondering, are both Tara, aka Victoria in WWE, Gail Kim, and Mickey James. And in Trinity's case, she's the first one that I can think of who won the Women's Championship at WrestleMania and won the Knockouts Championship at Slammiversary. So she can say that she won gold on two of the biggest pay-per-views in two of the biggest companies in the United States. So you know what? Little interesting trivia, and fair play to you, Miss Trinity Fatu.
yeah, I kind of agree with you in the fact that this match was good, but it never hit that second gear, which I feel is matches kind of build. They build and they build, and there's good action, slowly building, but then you get to that second gear, and that's when all of this crazy stuff happens. That's when the near falls happen. That's when the oh my god, I can't believe this happened. I can't believe that happened. But when it felt like we were getting into that, she got her in the submission. I think Starstruck, right?
Yep.
And she taps. I expected her to get out of that. I expected Jonathan to hit a move, and then 1-2 kick out, and then Trinity to hit a move, 1-2 kick out, and then after a back and forth of like big moves, big kick outs, not like a million kick outs, because you don't want to like overdo it, but like big moves, big kick outs, commentators losing their voices. That's when Trinity hits the big move, gets the submission in, and then she wins. And it feels like they kind of skipped. They skipped the end of it and just went to like the very last moment rather than having the last 5 minutes play out, in my opinion.
I feel like, and as you're saying this, I'm thinking of this idea in my head, and I feel like I wish they had done this, is where we had the moment where Trinity basically goes to the top rope to hit like a diving crossbody, almost like shades of her husband, basically, of the Usos, to hit this maneuver. But Deonna knees up or rolls out of the way. And then, of course, Deonna tries to hit the Queen's Gambit. Trinity bone rushes Deonna into the corner, shoulders are in there. It looks like, oh, we're going to see some action in the corner. And it does, but it sees Deonna literally put her in the Mega Queen's Gambit, the same move that put Jordynne Grace out of commission, basically. She hits it, and we're thinking, that's it? She beat Jordynne Grace with this move. Trinity, you're great, but you're good, but you're no Jordynne Grace, so clearly that's it, right? All right, count. 1, 2. Literally, the last possible second. Foot is on the rope, and everybody's like, oh my god, and Deonna just looks, thinks, oh god, I did it, I won. Then she looks, sees that foot on the rope, and she's like, and her facial expression just says, are you fucking kidding me right now? And she's like, you know what, that's it, I'm done. Literally loses her shit for a bit, grabs her by the hair, does the classic thing with her throat. Queen's Gambit again this time. I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna spike it harder this time. Reverse into a 1, 2. Oh, Deonna kicks out, turns into the Starstruck. And wait, look like Deonna's gonna kick out. Nope. Now Trinity's put her not only in the Starstruck, but even got her by her legs, basically, got her all wrapped up, and then you see her tap out, basically. And Tom's like, oh my god, she tapped out. She tapped. It's like, wait, and Hannafin is like losing his shit, like, and sorry, I should say Ray Walsh, who was a big homer for Deonna, is like, what? Oh my God, we got a new Knockouts champion. It's like the age of the virtuosa is over, and the Glow Empire has just begun, and it's like something like that, basically.
Yeah, like you mentioned, the age of the virtuoso is over, and like that's a storyline thing. But I think there's a new era in the Knockouts division in the sense that Jordynne Grace left. Deonna Purazzo, we don't really know her future, but I want her to stick around. I would not be surprised if in the next few months we hear that she respectfully parts ways with the company. I don't think it's going to be a controversial thing, but like just naturally moves on because she's done everything she can do. I don't think it's like a for sure, like a foregone conclusion that Deonna's leaving. I'm not like one of those people who's like, okay, they lost the title, they're definitely gone now. I definitely could see a world where Deonna resigns with the company, but it would not surprise me if she left. And
yeah, it's kind of. I'm sorry. It's like, and just think of it back to Taya Valkyrie, where she left the first time, and we thought, well, she's did everything you could do at that time, aside from winning the Knockouts tag titles with Rosemary. She went to WWE, and yeah, we all know how much of a misfire that was. Came back to Impact for a bit, won the tag titles, and as good as it was, after that, I just felt like that's it. It's like that was like the last thing she forgot to do before she parted ways. And then when she did, she went to AEW, and I don't watch AEW, but from what I've heard, people have said it's kind of not been so good for her. Like going from feuding with Jade Cargill to now kind of going on a losing streak and just kind of not just eating L's, which again, not good because, in Impact, she was the longest reigning Knockouts champion. Now she's gone from that to being on AEW Collision, just being like second banana at best. And it's like, I don't want that for Deonna if she does go there. Now, to be fair, she's friends with Britt Baker, so maybe Britt will put in a good word to have her in the main event spot without a doubt. But at the same token, when it comes to Impact stars going to AEW, there haven't been too many that have had success. I mean, the only one you could probably say was Ray Phoenix and Pentagon Jr., but even then, their time there or their success is kind of peanuts compared to what they were doing in Impact Wrestling, in my opinion, basically. But if Deonna does leave, it's like, well, she's done everything. It'll definitely be a bit of a blow to the division to have a presence like that go, but I'm pretty sure Impact will recover. They always do. If she does stay, I will be happy with that because I feel like with how the roster's always changing and especially with how good Impact manages to evolve, especially if, say, they think about going to the UK and whatnot, perhaps maybe going to the UK, exploring all of, wrestling there and wrestling them type of talent might give her a reason to be like, okay, I might just stay around for a little bit longer. And also, I get to be with my husband. I get to, have the time to pursue more of my stuff for like college and all this other type of stuff while wrestling. I don't think she's going to get that in AEW per se with, the type of leeway and schedule that Impact would provide her. But at the end of the day, we still got a lot more time before that decision is made. If she does stay, I'm happy. If not, all I can say is thank you for your service, for everything you have done for this company, and I hope to God that we will come back and wrestle for Impact again in the near future. And we wish you the best in whatever you do going forward, basically, if that happens.
Yeah, I mean, like, depending on what she does, I think this is still a new era for the company. This is the Trinity era. If Trinity sticks around, which honestly I expect, like once she came into the company, I was like, okay, this is a short run before she goes to AW or Stardom. But she really feels like she loves the company. At least that's the vibe I get. And like, they're pushing her really well. And part of that was people who are unsigned. But like, I don't know, I'm just kind of get this vibe that this is not a one and done for Trinity. This is not a 6 month thing and she's gone. I feel like this is the start of a multi-year run. She's not going to retire in Impact. I don't think that. I'm not going to go that far. But like, a good 1 to 2 year run where I think she's going to be a multi-time Knockouts champion. I feel like this is the beginning of the Trinity era that we're going to see dominate the Knockouts division for the next few years. I feel like the title is essentially going to be Trinity versus the next big thing. Like for the next 2 years, it's going to be whoever faces Trinity. They're going to build that division around her. She's going to be the figurehead of that division.
Yeah, and it feels like that has kind of been, and since the beginning of this new era in Impact going all the way back to 2018, that's kind of like how it's felt for the Knockouts division, even the tag division. It's like I would say from 2018 to somewhere like 2019, it was kind of like, let's introduce the new stars of this generation of the Knockouts division. Like Taya, Tessa, Tasha Steeles, Kira Hogan, Jordan Grace, Sue Young, names like that. Then once Taya became champion, it kind of felt like the age of Wea Loca, basically, where whether she was a tag team, whether she was feuding with or against Rosemary, she felt like, yeah, we were watching an era of women's wrestling that was not only flamboyant, colorful, but at the same time hard-hitting, which describes Taya especially. But then once, that began to show that she was going to be leaving, we started to go into a new era, which was the age of the Virtuosa. And now I just feel like now we've gone from, the introducing the new stars of the generation from the Taya and Deonna era to now, as you said, the Trinity era. And how long it will be for and what type of stuff will we can expect, we're not sure. But if the previous eras of that we've seen, they've been pretty good, and I have faith both not only just in Impact, but I do think, especially with how Trinity has been lovingly talking about Impact, that she wants to stay, and she's not one of those people who will be like, "Oh, I want to stay in Impact, and I want to help build this brand up, or I'm going to be a lifer." And then Vince McMahon or Triple H gives a call, and then immediately like, "Oh, okay, bye Impact, deuces," and you're like, "I'm sorry, didn't you just say a few months ago you wanted to retire in Impact or build up the brand, and then a few months later, Vince or whomever just gave you a call, and you're like, oh, okay, all right, I'm out, deuces." It's like, no, she looks like she's gonna be here for a while, and I think I speak for a lot of us Impact fans. When I say I'm happy to have someone who not only could draw in new fans and fans who have been watched Impact for a while, but you are committed to be here, and you don't just see this as a, well, how can I wrestle without having to do too many dates type of scenario? And I'm glad that she's here, and I can't wait to see what she's going to do as the Knockouts champion, basically.
And someone else who could bring in new viewers to the company, before we talk about the main event, is Sanada, who was announced the IWGP Heavyweight Champion. I cannot remember the last time an IWGP Heavyweight Champion, like a current champion, has been on an Impact program. So this is like a very big deal. And he wasn't announced for the Multiverse United show, unlike Hiromu Takahashi, who has a tag match teaming with Mike Bailey against Trey Miguel and Leo Rush. That's a Multiverse United match. Like, it's a fun match, but like, it's a one-off. So that's not like something I see as a major talking point. But the Sanada thing, on the other hand, I see as a massive talking point because she's been announced for the following tapings: Emergence, which implies that this won't be a one-off. We could see Sanada for the next few months of Impact programming. What do you think of this development?
Well, first off, I would say this is like, not only is this big for Impact, because the last time a current champion from New Japan showed up was when Jay White was still the leader of the Bullet Club that back then, and was the never open heavyweight champion, which, not only Jay White in Impact, but the leader of the Bullet Club and a current champion in Impact Wrestling. Holy shit, that was big, and it still is. But having Sanada, who is the IWGP Heavyweight Champion, that is a big deal as well, because when it comes to the partnerships, it's like most people will view it's like AEW gets more of the benefits from it more than anything, which I feel like it's like, yeah, we get Okada, like they get Okada, they get all these other names, and the people who already are promoting AEW as a big thing are gonna talk more about that. Whereas, again, you had Jay White, you had Tomohiro Ishii, Suzuki, other members of the Bullet Club, Finjuice at that time show up. I didn't really get much attention. Again, which is unfortunate, because again, if this had happened in AEW, people would blow up and talk about this. But it kind of is like, it kind of shows where I'm like, it's been good, but it could be better. And I feel like this is the sign it's getting better, because, oh no, this isn't just a member of the Bullet Club. This isn't just a New Japan star. This is the IWGP Heavyweight Champion, our world champion, who is going to be at this show, and also could give Impact the excuse to, upload content, be like, oh, for those who don't know Sanada or might not know his history, he was actually in Impact Wrestling before most of y'all knew who he was. And to give you an idea, when he first showed up, he beat a man by the name of Austin Aries to be X Division champion. So yeah, he showed up, was already champion. Now he's coming back after how many years with championship gold. Will this be a non-title match, or will Impact insert somebody to challenge Sanada at Emergence? I'm just saying that would definitely get a lot of people talking right there, but that's just speculating on my part. And as it relates to the Multiverse United show, honestly, again, it may not get as much coverage again, like how say AEW was to partner with New Japan for Forbidden Door. But I feel like for us Impact fans and those and even New Japan fans, this is actually still a big thing. Because think of this, like few years ago, the idea of Impact and New Japan working together after all of that hoopla, that like people would have laughed at your face and said, "How many drugs have you done?" And like, "How much alcohol did you drink?" Because that's just not happening. Then it happens, and then we hear the announcement of this show that happened earlier, which we're like, "What?" That this is a cross-promoted show between two partners companies who disliked each other for many years, and now this is happening. And now, not only is it happening, it's happening again. And you're like, yeah, this is a big freaking deal right now. And I know Impact definitely will treat it as a big deal, as well as New Japan. And you know what? While most of what will happen on this show, I don't think is going to affect whatever storylines New Japan or Impact are going to tell, depending on what other matches will be announced. I do generally see this like, yeah, this is going to be like a great several hours of pro wrestling, and we get to see dream matches that most of us would have thought, yeah, this is never going to happen unless if Impact creates another, sells another video game or something. So I'm looking forward to not only Multiverse United 2, but I'm also looking forward to see Sonata basically return at Emergence. And also, as a member of the Bullet Club, what will this mean, if anything, for Ace and Bay, who are still members of the Bullet Club? So,
Uh, Sonata, Sonata has a lot to do in this company. I feel like this is a homecoming for him after years and years, and I feel like there's a lot of really good competitors for him to face. Of course, there's people like Jonathan Gresham and Mike Bailey who would have the best matches with him.
oh
But
yeah,
I also mentioned this earlier. I feel like when it comes to this respect, Eddie Edwards, who was a big star in Noah, their world champion, I feel like could make a claim for going after the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. I think that would be a very good match. And Frankie Kazarian, a man who has respect all over the business, is someone else who can compete for that championship and like have it not really feel out of the ordinary. Another man who I feel like could go after the championship, and we're going to talk about him in just a bit, is Nick Aldis, who doesn't really fit the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, but like as we were going to talk about later, was not very successful with the Impact World title. So maybe this like desperation to seek gold, kind of like Hangman Page after he lost the AEW World title, could lead to him going after the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, being like, hey, we were kind of rising up in this company at around the same time, so let's face off this like battle of the past where Sonata can get this big win over Aldis because he's not losing the IWGP Heavyweight Championship to Aldis. I can't imagine.
no.
I cannot imagine a single timeline where Nick Aldis is the IWGP World Champion. I think he's a fine challenger, but he will. He does not fit that title at all as a champion.
Honestly, if they ever made that decision, I would be perplexed, interested, confused, intrigued in so many ways because it's like I'm not the British man who is all about traditional old school style of wrestling is now the champion for a company whose main wrestling consists of hard hitting, strong style, almost super kick style of wrestling. It's like they're like making Tyrus the NWA champion. It doesn't fit. And no amount of the promoters trying to convince me could make me think that, yeah, this is not going to work. This just looks like it's an image, but I'm not sure it's an image that one could look at and say, as Tony Schiavone once infamously said, yeah, that'll put butts in seats. They'll get
Yeah.
people talking, but not butts in seats. But speaking of all this and butts in seats, Main event time!
Alex Shelley. After, here's a side note, every single champion defending their title so far has lost their title. It has been either 04 or 05 for the champions, so Alex Shelley coming into this with a massive disadvantage, going up against a challenger, Nick Aldis. As we've talked about, Alex Shelley, he was the one to do it, the one to defend his title, which I kind of expected, to be honest. Because they were like building up this story. Like, I found this match really unpredictable until the show itself, because there were promos being like, "Hey, if you lose this match, you're a transitional champion." I was just thinking to myself, they're not gonna have Alex Shelley lose to Nick Aldis and be like, "Yo, bro, you're a transitional champion. I just proved it." Like, Alex Shelley has to win the match.
And also, I don't know. The thing is, also, you can't have him be a transitional champion when we just had Steve Macklin, well, not exactly booked this type of way, but considering when his reign started, when it ended, be seen as a transitional champion. You can't have two transitional championship reigns back to back, because that does hurt the prestige of the belt, regardless how good the match is. It does hurt the belts, especially looking back at it. And honestly, I'm glad they didn't do it. And honestly, with how they booked this show, with the champions losing, and how all my predictions were just so thrown out the window with how they were booking this show, I was like, okay, you're already doing the whole, "oh, we've got new champions" thing. Okay, apparently you're going to be going, I guess you might as well have all this win the belt, because you're already doing the, everybody else is now, we got new champions. So, oh boy, you already did it with everyone else. So sure, make all this the champion. Let's restart the whole thing and have a new series of champions going into Impact this Thursday and see what happens. Thank God they didn't. I actually was hoping for Shelley to win, which she did, and it was a very good matchup. I would imagine some would probably find the match a little too bit slow and boring because of how, the amount of ways they were breaking down each other, from like picking apart the legs, the fingers, the arms, and whatnot, which I imagine for some people that sort of methodical type of wrestling probably would intrigue them, because it's like you're targeting various parts of the body to soften your opponent up for a finisher. That'll hurt when you apply it, or oh, they have a certain move that they need or that type of finisher, but you can't use that maneuver if that part of your body is kind of already giving you in tremendous amounts of pain. Yeah, again, it was very competitive. I like the part where Alex Shelley just spits water in Nick Aldis's face, and
Yeah.
Aldis immediately gets him in the Texas cloverleaf, which immediately, and they're almost like, "oh God, Shelley, your defiance is my cost you here. He might lose the belt." And I'm thinking to myself, no, they're not. We just saw Chris Sabin literally lose the belt in a matter of minutes. You're not about to do Shelley dirty like this. You're not about to have him tap out right now. Not like this. Thank God it didn't happen. I heard people had speculated Mickie James, who, by the way, I feel like is healed up from her previous rib
She's
injury.
been wrestling on the Indies.
Yeah, and people expected, oh, she's gonna come involved in this match, turn heel, and help Aldis win. Which I'm like, okay, sure, a heel Mickie James, I wouldn't mind that, but considering how she left, how Impact would manage to make that story make sense, I'm not sure exactly, but I also, a little side note, I did see on Twitter both Mickie James and Tasha Steelz congratulate Trinity on winning the Knockouts Championship. And hey, if Mickey's healed up, Mickie versus Trinity in an Impact Wrestling ring where they could literally go as long as they can. That's a match I would like to see. And And if you can bring Tasha Steelz back, who at this point I don't know what her situation is, but if you can bring her back, I'd be absolutely for it because I mean, just the amount of trash talk that you could have for this rivalry. I mean, Tasha could just sell the rivalry just on her mic work alone, and Trinity can easily answer back. So that's what I would like to see. But getting back to the main event, it was a very, very good match. I wouldn't say it's the best match on the card. It was a very good match because there were so many good matches on this card that it's hard to really say which one. It's hard to differentiate them. Like the Ultimate X match, I definitely say is up there in terms of one of the best. This match, I'd say second, third from that list, especially, and obviously the right outcome was there. I mean, Shelley has been doing good consistently for Impact in terms of the ratings. He's over. He's definitely a wrestler that both Impact fans and mainstream or casuals will look at and be like, oh yeah, I like this guy. Let's keep him as our champion. So I think this made from a good business sense. Good to have Shelley retain his title against Aldis. And what happens with Aldis afterwards? Who knows? I mean, I know he'll probably go after the world title. But of course, he's going to have some competition with, Leo Rush, who might be eyeballing using option C. There will be, of course, maybe as you mentioned, Kazarian, who might be wanting to jump in to want to become, world champion because, hey, this is my story. I want, and Shelley, you stole that from me. I want to be able to do that. There's Steve Macklin. When he comes back, he wants an opportunity. And then there's a new element, actually not really an element, a weapon that's been added into the mix, a certain walking weapon, if you know what I mean.
Josh Alexander.
He's back.
He's Superman. How is he already healed?
He's Canadian John Cena. What can I tell you?
So Josh Alexander after the match, by the way, great match. I really enjoyed it. Like, he comes out, Alex Shelley retains after, let's just go through the finisher a bit. Nick Aldis flow blows Alex Shelley, hits a Michinoku driver. I thought this match was over after that. 1-2 kick out. Then Alex Shelley hits a DDT on the title after Aldis tried to hit him with the title. Hits a super kick and hits his finisher with, what's the name of his finisher again?
It's Switchblade, I think it is. I think it's the Switchblade or some. I think when Jay White used it, they called it the Switchblade, or I think it's either that or Shell Shock. I think it is.
I think it's Shell Shock. So he hits that and he gets the 1-2-3. So Shelley wins. Fairly competitive match, like a very, as Hakeem said, methodical match. Like, they worked on the body parts. Like a very traditional match, I'd say. Not like you're kind of go crazy, do everything you can, balls to the wall. Like, absolute insanity that you get from, like, for example, AEW matches. Like, it was a very traditional, set enduring type match. And then Josh Alexander comes out. He comes to the ring, and all he says is 2 words, and I quote, "I'm back." I'm a big Josh Alexander fan. Like, the people who personally know me know, like, he's in contention for my favorite wrestler. It's either Josh Alexander or Bryan Danielson right now. Like, he's been...
Imagine that. Just imagine that match for a second. Bryan Danielson versus Impact. Now, obviously, AEW would have to reform their partnership, and Impact would have to move heaven and earth to make that match happen, whether on Impact or AEW. But God, just imagine that for a second, and man, the amount of stiff blows and submission holds those guys would have if that match happened. But speaking of dream matches, just now, I know it would probably take a while for them to have it extend all the way to this point, but just think of this for a second. have this as the main event for Bound for Glory for 1 second. You and everyone else who after this can tell me what you think. The main event of Bound for Glory, Josh Alexander versus Alex Shelley for the Impact World Championship. The reason? Simple. Alex Shelley, the stalwart, the face of his generation, finally reached the mountaintop to become world champion, and in his reign has fought tooth and nail to prove himself as one of the best and to secure his status, his reputation and legacy as one of the all-time greats. Against Josh Alexander, the stalwart, the ace of Impact Wrestling, the man who never lost the championship, and after facing injury and adversity, finally will face off against the man who he once beat to retain the Impact World title. Almost 1 year later, the roles reverse, but once again face off in the main event. Two champions, two different roads to get here. One championship belt, one match on the line. The face of his generation versus the Iron Man of Impact Wrestling. Shelley Alexander for the Impact World Heavyweight Championship at Bound for Glory. Who will come out on top?
I'd have Shelley.
I mean, license to put money right there. I mean, just from the match itself, like dream match.
I would have Shelley win.
Honestly, I agree. Like I felt like this win for him against Shelley's win against Aldis, it was definitely needed for both legitimacy for the reign because I feel like he needed a big win at a show like this. But he can beat Alexander, who is again like the Superman of Impact Wrestling and has pretty much dominated the main event scene almost since he and Ethan Page went their separate ways. I mean, again, what does that say for Shelley? And also would also show that, you know what? We don't always need to have Alexander in the main event scene or as the world champion. We can make new stars, even if they're stars that y'all already know about, like Alex Shelley. And again, that would be great if that was the case. But again, as you said, Alexander, Leo Rush, Kazarian, perhaps another option that Nick Aldis might be deciding to come back and say, I'm not done, I want another shot. Or perhaps another option will be coming later on down the road. So in terms of the contenders and possible contenders for the World Championship, going forward and going into, Impact 1000, Victory Road, and especially Bound for Glory, it is a good time, especially for the main event, because, again, there's some places we know it can go, but there's some places where we can speculate on where it could go. And if it does, this could be interesting as well. So overall, it is great to see Josh Alexander back. I also cannot wait for when Steve Macklin comes back because, oh boy, he's definitely going to want to get that championship back as well and feel like he might be out of action, but he's going to be doing some scouting, and especially on Alex Shelley, like how we did for Josh Alexander, before Josh got that injury. But overall, if I had to give this show a Slammiversary 2023 grade, I would give it an A-. Like, the lighting, the production was good. The crowd was definitely into it. And I'd say the DMC match was good for what it was. I thought the Ultimate X match was also solid in its own right. The tag titles match for the knockouts was good for especially what it was, as well as Kazarian and Edwards. Deonna versus Trinity, they felt a little disappointed. It felt the hype kind of hyped it up more than what it should have been, but it was still a good match. But the only real negative I would really give it is the Bully, Diener, Demore, EY match, which again, it's all over the place, but unlike the four-way tag match, which I would also say is a good thing on this show, it just felt like that tag match, the four-way tag match, that was like all over the place in a good way. This was the tag match with Demore and Bully and Company felt all over the place, but it just felt like there was too many cooks and certain stuff in there where it just felt like too many cooks in the kitchen and the pot and the stew just got so messed up that it just added a weird, unusual taste to get us to the finish line, if any of that made sense. But what about you? If you had to give your grade or thoughts on what you thought was good or not good about this year's Slammiversary, what would you say?
I'm gonna have to give it a B plus. I think it was a very good show, and I think the theme of this show was the Night of Returns. We opened up the show with Jake something. We would have Eric Young return the show. We had Josh Alexander at the end of the show. Like, this was a new era for the show. There's new faces, or I guess old faces. There's new champions. Going forward, I'm very excited to see what's next for Impact. Like, there's people. The roster looks completely different to how it looked like a few months ago, for example, and that really, really excites me. We have new faces at the top of the card. I feel like Impact's done some great moves that really. Impact, when Triple H came back and Ring of Honor started like getting established, it like when Ring of Honor started getting established and Triple H came back, there was a lot of talent signings. There was like a talent exodus, I suppose, and I feel like Impact has now fully recovered from that, to the point where the roster looks better than it has in a very, very long time. So overall, the show gets a thumbs up. I'm very excited for the future of this company. You can catch us reviewing the show every Friday. If it's not on Friday, we will update you if we have to reschedule it. But every single Friday, it will be uploaded on this channel. I have been Cosk. You can find me on Twitter at Cosk151. I have been joined by Hakeem. Where can they find you, Hakeem?
You can find me mostly on Twitter at Fullerton Hakeem, where you will also find most of my wrestling related articles. In fact, I have a few coming out with Victory Road not too far, where I'm going to be doing some articles on the top 10 best and worst matches in Victory Road history, as well as a potential one on the top 10 Impact Wrestling stars who would fit well during the TNA era and vice versa. So be on the lookout for that. And also, be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Give us your thoughts on what you thought of Slammiversary, what you thought was the best match or least favorite match, and what you think about the announcement of Sonata coming back at Emergence, as well as the returns and the championship wins that we saw here at this show. And again, be sure to spread the word and share the video. It helps us out and it helps grow this brand, grow the channel, and makes people know that people actually do watch Impact, and there is a group who want to see something else other than just WWE, AEW, and etc. So yeah, that's all I gotta say. And I think we did another good job, and look forward to the next time we do this.
I've been Kosk. I've been joined by Hakeem. Subscribe for more.